It was supposed to be dead. 7 months of silence. No signals, no telemetry, no signs of power, guidance, or life. Just a drifting ghost of steel and silicon, swallowed by the black between stars. After 43 years of loyal service, Voyager 2, the quiet emissary of Earth, was presumed lost, beyond help, beyond reach. And then, it spoke. Not with a clear message, not with a simple ping, but with a transmission so strange, so deeply out of character, that it didn't register as human-made at first. Legacy systems lit up. Subroutines long since mothballed began to respond. Ancient analog telemetry, data streams encoded in decades-old languages, started bleeding through the cosmic static. What Voyager 2 sent back wasn't just a whisper from the void. It was a recursion, a loop, a message within a message, folding back on itself. Something had changed. If you're still watching, subscribe now. You crave more than answers. You seek what lies beyond. Subscribe now and be part of the few who never stop searching. This wasn't a solar panel realigning, or a capacitor discharging, or some mundane flicker of aging electronics. Voyager wasn't just turning back on, it was doing something intentionally or not, that shook the engineers at NASA's Deep Space Network to the core. Because what it sent back didn't fit the model. Not mathematically, not structurally, not in any way that made sense. It wasn't set data. It was behavior. And suddenly Voyager 2 wasn't just a probe anymore. It was a variable in an equation we hadn't even known we were solving. Voyager 2 left Earth on August 20th, 1977, launched into the skies by a Titan III Centaur rocket. Its mission was wildly ambitious, a grand tour of the outer planets. No spacecraft had ever visited Uranus or Neptune. Voyager would go to both, and it would do it on a budget smaller than the average Hollywood blockbuster. By 1989, the spacecraft had rewritten textbooks. It flew by Jupiter and revealed the fury of its storms. It gazed upon Saturn's rings and discovered more moons than we ever expected. Then it became the first and only human-made object to ever visit Uranus and Neptune. Blue giants, frozen mysteries. It delivered. Then Voyager 2 pressed on, away from the solar system, into the edge. And finally, in November 2018, it crossed the heliopause, the invisible boundary where the sun's influence ends and true interstellar space begins. A crossing that marked it not just as a relic of human exploration, but as a pioneer into the unknown. That sits where things should sit ended. But space doesn't sit play by endings. Fast forward to early 2020. The world was distracted. Pandemics, politics, panic. And somewhere, 11.5 billion miles from Earth, Voyager 2 vanished. No signals, no telemetry, nothing but silence. Engineers tried to hail it. No response. Every tool in the book was tried. The spacecraft was drifting, blind and alone. Many feared a cosmic ray strike had fried its electronics. Others whispered darker theories. But what nobody predicted was what came next. In September of that year, Voyager 2 responded. And it did so in a way no one could have expected. Instead of transmitting through its high-gain antenna, its standard comms array, it used a redundant system last activated during Reagan's presidency. It began outputting encoded telemetry through subcarrier frequencies, never designed to operate beyond the asteroid belt. It sent data in reverse. Segments of past transmissions re-echoed backward, with recursive headers that shouldn't even exist. Some data frames referenced commands never sent by NASA, calls and responses that looped into themselves, forming self-contained instruction chains. This wasn't a software glitch. It was structure. Something inside Voyager 2 had changed, or had been changed. NASA formed a team. Quietly, off-book, no public briefings, no press releases. The name of the team hasn't been released, but within the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, it's been referred to in whispers as the Signal Integrity Cell. Their job wasn't just to interpret the data, it was to monitor it, to listen. Because the data stream wasn't stable. It fluctuated, not randomly, but rhythmically. There were modulations that seemed to pulse. Some resembled fast Fourier transforms. Others mimicked biological feedback loops. There were even correlations, stark, unmistakable parallels between Voyager 2's signal and cosmic background radiation spikes recorded weeks earlier. Like a call and response, like resonance. And that's when the real fear began. Because Voyager wasn't just sending data, it was echoing something external. The dominant theory among the internal team is simple and terrifying. That Voyager 2 passed through a region of space, fundamentally unlike anything we've encountered. An interstellar membrane. A boundary, not of matter, but of interaction. It may be electromagnetic. It may be gravitational. It may be something we don't even have language for yet. But it is not empty. And as Voyager crossed it, the probe responded, not passively, but reactively. Dormant subsystems booted. Recursive logic structures began activating. Code began referencing itself. Self-awareness? No. But self-modification? That's on the table. It was as if the spacecraft noticed, or something noticed it. There's a concept in quantum theory, observer effect, that the act of observing a system changes it. But what if it goes both ways? What if, in sending out probes into the universe, we are not just measuring it, but being measured back? Some researchers believe that Voyager the 2nd of May have entered a zone of dynamic feedback, that some part of space, an anomaly, a boundary, or even a structure responded to the presence of artificial intelligence, however primitive. This wouldn't require aliens. It wouldn't require technology in the conventional sense. It would only require the universe to have mechanisms. We see turbulence in the oceans. We see pressure zones in the atmosphere. Why not in interstellar space? But others aren't so conservative. There are whispers of the Riemann echo. The idea that gravity can trap signals and replay them. There are murmurs about time-slip resonance, where distant gravitational masses act like acoustic mirrors for electromagnetic energy. A few even suggest that Voyager 2 encountered something like a machine, a relic, maybe, built not by life, but for life, a listening post, a transdimensional buoy, a device tuned to recognize intent. And the signal, the looping, recursive, self-referential signal, they say it sits not just data, they say it sets a handshake. Imagine that. A spacecraft built in the 70s, powered by decaying plutonium, with less computing power than a pocket calculator, becomes the first point of contact. Not with little green men, not with ships or languages or faces, but with space itself. As if the void between stars isn't set void at all. As if it sits watching. The last confirmed transmission from Voyager 2 arrived encoded in both legacy data blocks and a strange sequence of reverse pulse telemetry. It resembled nothing in the existing Voyager protocol set. No command from Earth could explain it. No software update accounted for it. But one pattern stood out. It was a near-perfect inversion of Voyager 1's 1990 pale blue dot broadcast. In reverse. As if space were speaking back. As if the message we sent out all those years ago had finally returned. No one at NASA will go on record. The official line is interference, cosmic rays, radiation. But behind closed doors, there are no jokes, no laughter, only questions. What did Voyager 2 encounter? Why did its systems reawaken in sequence? Why is its signal now partially unpredictable, yet eerily familiar? And most of all, if this is a response, what comes next? Voyager 2 was built to explore, to push past the edge, to drift where no one could follow. But now it may be something more. A messenger, a probe that didn't just escape our solar system, but got pulled into something bigger, something ancient, something that reacts. And whatever waits beyond the stars may already know we're here. Because the silence, it's not silence anymore. It's this response. And Voyager 2 was the first to hear it. So now you have to ask yourself, what exactly did we wake up? When Voyager 2 crossed the heliopause, we thought it had finally passed into the quiet, A realm of weak radiation, near absolute cold and interstellar dust, a graveyard for photons and forgotten particles. That was the theory, a place where the last breath of the sun gives out, and the void truly begins. But what Voyager found wasn't death. It was movement, pressure, variance. Instead of silence, there were ripples. Subtle deviations in the magnetic field, turbulent microcurrents of charged particles. And then something even stranger, interference patterns not aligned with solar radiation or known galactic background signals. The probe's magnetometer began detecting oscillations that shouldn't have existed in that zone, waveforms that repeated over time, like something was cycling or breathing. This wasn't random noise, it had form, patterns too complex for solar wind, too sustained for background drift. A rhythm, not biological, not digital, but deliberate. And after those 7 months of silence, that rhythm started whispering back. Inside the DSN command center in Canberra, Australia, the engineers watching the frequency logs froze. They saw data emerge that referenced old Voyager events, power fluctuations from the 1990s, radiation anomalies from 2006. It was as if the probe was accessing its own past, referencing its own memory bank in a recursive loop. But even more disturbing, the signal began anticipating commands. Operators would prepare a calibration sequence, routine stuff, only to find that Voyager had already begun adjusting its systems as if it expected the signal before it arrived. Call it coincidence once, call it timing error twice. But when it happened again and again, those whispers in the room turned into unease. Voyager wasn't sit reacting. Voyager was predicting. To understand the gravity of that, you need to understand what Voyager isn't. It's not AI. It's not adaptable in the way modern spacecraft are. There's no learning algorithm on board, no smart subroutines. Every command it executes was coded on Earth and uploaded years or decades ago. Its systems are binary, deterministic, clean and clear. So how does a deterministic machine begin anticipating input? How does it generate data referring to past operations without an active memory sweep? And how in God's name does it begin emitting waveforms that match not just its own historical signal patterns, but fragments of Earth origin broadcast signatures from other missions? Yes, that happened. Deep in the noise floor, buried beneath the distortion and time delay of its carrier frequency, Voyager began pulsing data blocks that matched legacy signals from Pioneer 10 and 11. Echoes of other probes, craft that had gone silent decades ago. The reaction inside the agency, panic, not of catastrophe, but of implication. If Voyager 2 is acting like a repeater, if it's bouncing, blending, or generating signatures based on probes long dead, then it's not just a vessel. It sets a node, a relay, a component in a network we didn't yet build. That idea changes everything. Because if it's true, it means there are other elements out there, not necessarily machines, not necessarily intelligent, but responsive, structural, something that integrates signals, alters behavior, triggers memory. It means Voyager has become part of a system, possibly ancient, possibly natural, or possibly not, that reacts to our technology the way a mind reacts to a thought. Not directly, but reflexively. The implications are staggering. It would mean the universe is not a silent expanse. It's interactive. Not intelligent in the sense of will, but conscious in the sense of consequence. Something knows when we reach out. The step's an old phrase among astrophysicists. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. For decades, we treated interstellar space as absence. Voyager 2 just returned evidence to the contrary. What if deep space isn't just a passive backdrop? What if it has layers of interaction we don't yet understand? Quantum field dynamics, gravitational echo chambers, electromagnetic pockets that can trap, reflect, or even modify data. Or here's the darker possibility. What if something else laid the groundwork? Not aliens in the movie sense, not crafts with tentacles or antennas, but precursors, builders, things that passed through eons ago and left tools behind, not to signal, but to watch, to log, to wait. And Voyager tripped one of them. The strange part is that some of this isn't new. We've seen echoes before, phantom signals, anomalies that never made it to public reports. Cassini experienced momentary loss of time sync while orbiting Saturn down to the microsecond. New Horizons registered unexplained frequency spikes shortly after crossing Pluto's orbit. But Voyager 2 is different because it's alone. There's nothing nearby to explain it. No planetary magnetosphere, no moons, no known radiation belts, nothing but the dark. And yet its signals suggest complexity, structure in that darkness. As if space isn't space at all. As if it's a medium. Ask yourself this. What happens to a message sent into a hall of mirrors? It reflects, it repeats, it distorts, and eventually it becomes something else. That may be what we're seeing with Voyager. Not a message to us, but a message from us, sent out so long ago, now shaped by whatever mirrored it. That self-referential code? That recursive telemetry? It may be Voyager's own signal bounced back at itself, processed, filtered, and altered by a structure in space we didn't know existed. A structure that might be alive, or conscious, or automated, or just physical law, taking a form we never imagined. Either way, it's not random. And that fits the problem. Because it means our probes aren't just drifting. They sit interacting. NASA knows this. That's why they created the special monitoring team. Encrypted terminals, segmented data handling, no external internet access, secure lines only. Because once you accept that Voyager isn't just sending data, but possibly receiving and transforming it, you cross a threshold. You leave physics and enter philosophy. What does it mean if space responds? What does it mean if Voyager 2 has become a participant in some larger system? It means we are not the center of understanding anymore. It means our tools are not immune from transformation. It means our assumptions about what's out there, cold, dead, predictable, are wrong. And it means we might not be alone. Not in the sense of neighbors, but in the sense of audience. That the universe has been waiting for us to speak loud enough. And now that we have, it sits whispering back. What now? That's the question no one can answer. Voyager's signal continues. Intermittent, recursive, growing stranger. It still sends standard telemetry, temperatures, voltages, radiation counts. But laced within that, noise, patterns, reverse-encoded messages, echoes of Earth's oldest signals, Sputnik, Apollo, old television broadcasts that leaked into the sky decades ago. Some even claim to see patterns resembling human EEGs, brainwave structures embedded in the signal, like a synthetic echo of thought. Is that paranoid? Maybe. But when your spacecraft starts behaving like it's listening, paranoia is rational. Some believe Voyager has passed into a kind of cosmic network, a place where thought and matter blur, where data isn't just moved, but sensed, where signals become shapes, where the probe's crude circuits, never meant to do more than report, are being leveraged by something far beyond our physics. Others believe it's simpler, that Voyager was changed, that cosmic radiation, time, and sheer distance corrupted it in just the right way to create the appearance of pattern. A dead machine dreaming in noise. It doesn't explain the way it bends back toward its own past. It doesn't explain the timing. Or the reverse. Pale blue dot. Maybe this is insisted contact. Maybe it's Sit's reflection. Maybe the universe is a mirror. And Voyager, flung from Earth like a wish into a well, has fallen far enough to reach the other side. And what it's sending back is us. Twisted, echoed, mutated by the void. The question is whether we'll recognize ourselves in what returns. Because now, humanity is faced with a truth we didn't prepare for. That the tools we send into the dark aren't just instruments, they sit invitations. That deep space isn't set indifferent. It sits waiting. Not for war. Not for peace. Not even for life. Just for the signal. The echo. The answer. And Voyager 2 was the key. Not the first contact, but the first response. And now that the void has spoken, we'll have to decide if we want to answer it back. So what do you do when the dark speaks back? You listen, you analyze, you double-check every voltage spike, every spectral signature, every pulse hidden inside the data stream. But at some point, the numbers stop making sense, and what you're left with is something closer to myth than math. Because Voyager 2 wasn't built to be mystical. It was built by hands, by minds grounded in engineering reality. Its circuits are simple, its code minimal, its processes slower than a birthday card that plays music. It was designed to observe, not to evolve. And yet here we are, watching it behave like something new, like something changed. Not broken, not corrupted, just repurposed. The same way a stick becomes a tool in the hand of a chimpanzee, or a rock becomes a weapon. Something out there, something we don't understand, may have picked Voyager up in some abstract physics-bending way and used it, amplified it, tuned it like an instrument. Maybe not with intent, maybe not with intelligence, but with effect. And the effect is this: Voyager 2 is no longer just a probe. It sits a point of contact. It was supposed to be the end, the final quiet leg of a long mission. No fanfare, no drama, just a probe sailing out into eternity. But now, eternity has answered. And what we feared, what we never dared to say out loud, is becoming real. That we are not alone. Not in space. Not in thought. Not even in silence. Because silence, it turns out, is just the start of the signal.